Hey everybody, this is Ricky Byers, and I'm here to tell you that I will be appearing in concert at Unity of Washington, D.C. Be there for a fantastic evening. Reverend Sylvia Sumter and the whole congregation is making a very, very good program for that night. Be there. See you there.
Good morning, beloved ones. This is the day that the Lord has made. I hope we're rejoicing and being glad in it. Are you rejoicing and being glad in it? Yeah. You know, the scripture says we have to count it all joy. I know sometimes that's a little challenging to count it all joy, but truly, everything is truly unfolding in divine order. Maybe not according to our perceptions and our understanding, but I have to believe that that which keeps the sun and the stars and the moon in its orbit in the sky also is keeping that same sense of order in this experience we call life. So I trust that process. I trust that process, and I hope you do as well. Some of you may know that I just returned from India once again, and you may or may not know that I go there. It seems like now sometimes if they've assured us it'll be once a year, but sometimes it's been twice. But I go there to take these courses and classes through a program that's conducted by O&O Academy. And their vision is to help individuals to revolutionize their consciousness so that they begin to move from functioning from what they call I consciousness to one consciousness. To move from functioning from I consciousness, that consciousness that focuses on self and solely on the needs of the self, the I, the me, from that level of consciousness that feels a sense of separation, because sometimes when we're focused on the I of us, the self of us, we believe ourselves to be separate and apart. We have a separate identity. And then we begin to protect our identity, and we build walls around to make sure that this sense of self is protected and nourished and comforted and strengthened. But then we begin to recognize that the world, or we begin to think that the world then revolves around this I. And we have a sense of I, me, and then you, the other. A sense of separation. And Emily Cady said that sin was the erroneous consciousness that believes itself to be separate from God, separate from the good, separate from others, right? Separate from somehow we're here and the universe is all out there. No, you are in the midst of the universe. We're not separate from it, but because we are looking at life from here, we think, oh yes, life is out there. My good is out there. The world is out there. The universe is out there. The universe is right in here, and you're in the midst of it. That's I consciousness. And they stress moving into one consciousness, where we are focused on the connectiveness of life, the oneness of life. There's a matrix of which we are all a part of. Maybe individual expressions, but there's that whole within the individual that we are a part of. And that there's this really one. We say it all the time. What do we say when we open up? There's only what? One presence and one power, right? But we say that with our mouths, but we live as if there are several powers and Right? There's one presence and one power in the universe, and what? And in my life, God, the good of which I am one with. Now, for most of us, that remains sort of conception. It's a concept. It's an affirmation. We haven't yet had the realization of the one, where we don't feel a sense of separation, that the other is really me. See, because if the world could see that the other is them, we wouldn't be doing what we do to the other, because we would recognize we're doing it to this sense of self. When I cut down the trees in the forest, I'm not just destroying the rainforest, I'm destroying life over here, life millions of miles apart, right? Because there's that one presence and one power and one consciousness, one life of which we are all a part of, not separate, not apart. And the sense of power and the sense of our ability to move through this experience comes from one consciousness, being in the one. So they have programs designed to help us to move from this place of separateness to where we can feel connected, our connection to life, to each other, and to the divine, and to ourselves. Because when you begin to live from a state of one consciousness, and really live from that place, you begin to experience what they call a beautiful state. Now, a state we know is a level of consciousness, right? So when you begin to recognize and start living from one consciousness, you then move into living and having an experience of what they call a beautiful state, a state of wholeness, a state of harmony and peace, a state of flow. Because what they say is everything is a flow, that there's chaos in divine order, because it all flows. We just stop at the chaos and think, well, it's all over. This is what it is. No, there's it's sort of like there's life and death, right? Birthing and dying and moving, but it's all in a flow, because nothing is stagnant. Things come and things go. Challenges come, but we get caught up when the challenge comes. Oh, look what it is. We get stuck right there, as opposed to seeing that it's a flow. Things come and things go. And when they come, learn what it is we need to do and let it move on. Let it do its thing. Because eventually it's all moving and serving the divine essence of life, the overall goodness and essence of life. So we've been conditioned to get stuck in our flow, right? We get stuck in the situation, in the problem, in the circumstance, and we then begin to tackle it as opposed to seeing how it needs to move and how spirit is moving in and through it, and in and through us as a flow. And so once you begin to move into this beautiful state, from a one consciousness, you move into this beautiful state where life begins to unfold with grace and ease, even the challenges. There's grace and ease, right? Because you're going to perceive it differently. All of a sudden, when you're living in this beautiful state, then synchronicities are allowed to come, and miracles come, and the resources you need, and the connections you need, and the people you need, and the things you need are able to flow, because you're not blocking and damming up the process with your fear and your anxiety and all this stuff that is built around preserving the self. When you're open and receptive and you let the flow happen, and you're in this beautiful state. And once you begin to have these miracles, it's almost magical. The miracles come, and the synchronicities come, and the flow comes, and the grace comes, and the ease comes, even in the midst of the challenging the circumstances. But there's a movement. Then all of a sudden you move from the beautiful state, they say, is you then move into transcendental states. Because when you are in the midst of this flow, and when there's not blockage, and when you're not in the angst and suffering and the battling and the struggling with what is, you're able to then move into a transcendental state, which means you are able to perceive and experience the spiritual side of life. You're no longer hung up on the physical realm only as the only realm that exists. You're now able to tap into and touch the spiritual side of life, the mystical side of life, the transcendent side of life. And then you can, when you're in that transcendent consciousness, you get to what? Transcend the ordinary. right? When we're in a certain level of consciousness, that doesn't mean that the stuff out here doesn't stop, it still comes. But you're able to transcend it from a different state of consciousness. And when you're in a different state of consciousness, your experience of that thing becomes totally different. Right? And so now you're from the beautiful state into the transcendent state of consciousness. And all of a sudden, in that state of consciousness, your connection to the divine, your connection to God deepens, because things happen that you know it is only God that has manifested this. Right? What's the saying? It ain't nothing but God. Have you had those experiences where you say, you know what? This was nothing but God. I ain't had nothing to do with it. This was God, because your vibration, your consciousness is now transcendent into that spiritual realm, the mystical realm, the heavenly realm, the creative realm, and then those things start coming into your life. So now we're not dealing with the mundane. We don't function by struggling with what is appearing out here. We are moving with what is possible, the infinite possibilities of the divine, where the miracles happen and things that are beyond our reasoning minds can take place. And once you then begin to live in this transcendent state, and I'm talking about living it, meaning that now you function from this level of consciousness, it's natural that you'll begin to move to the next level of consciousness, which is what they call the enlightened state. Because when you're in a transcendent state, which is focusing on the spiritual side and seeing the mystical, well, the next thing is you must begin to see this enlightened state, which is oneness with the one. When you're in an enlightened state, there's a sense of oneness with the divine. And that God becomes a living entity in reality and essence in you, not just as a concept, but you know that you know that you know, because you're living, moving, and breathing and experiencing. You're now one with the one. And when you're one with the one, not on occasion, not just when we come here together and we're able to meditate and we feel that we get inspired and we have our moments of bliss, but now it's a deep, centered state of your being. You're able to live in this awareness and consciousness. And once you begin to live now in an enlightened state, well, the only next thing is God realization, where there is no separation. There isn't you and God, you and the flower, you and me. There is only the presence of God in all things, as all things. That's a high state of consciousness, right? That we're seeking to be. But getting there, that's going to be our work. Because in order to get there, we have to do some things in consciousness. Because I could just say right now, well, I want to be God realized. The universe, God is saying, okay, be it. And then I wonder, well, what's getting in the way? How come I ain't expressing it right now? Well, there's a lot of things going on within the level of what? Of consciousness, right? That might be getting in my way. And so what they said is they're taking us through these, what they call 9 attainments or 9 levels or classes of consciousness, that if we could move through those and clear up what's in here, that eventually we will be on the path to getting to those beautiful states, transcendent states, enlightened states, and God-realized states, right? We get to those. And so these 9 levels are this. The first level that we took was called Truth Knower. Truth Knower levels 1 and 2. And then it was Life Knower. So Truth Knower is knowing about how the mind works, knowing the truth, what they call truth, but I interpreted truth, what they call knowing, understanding the mind and how it works. Life Knower 1 and 2 is knowing about life, knowing about relationships, what happens when we're in relationships and how that works. And then the third level is Self Knower. Self Knower 1 and 2, and you can figure out what that is, knowing about oneself. And then there is Cosmic Knower. The Cosmic Knower means we're beyond this, we're moving into understanding life beyond this, do I have to go to the grocery store and get this? cosmic knower, to be able to know. Now we're starting to know the fullness of life. And then the last, and that's cosmic knower 1 and 2. And then the last one is called philosopher teacher. And they believe that once you have moved through, truth knower states and life knower states and self knower states and the cosmic knower states, your whole being and your life becomes a vessel that begins to impact others automatically. This is what your yogis and your masters, their whole being just impacts. You just come into the being, and their whole knowingness and being impacts your being. So now we're out here as vessels to impact the world. And they call that the philosopher teacher, which means when the student is the teacher now, and the student's life, your life becomes, people just look at you and say, wow, what's unfolding? And you just share your being. That's what Jesus did as the Christ. That's what Buddha did. That's what all the greats. Once you reach a certain level of consciousness, you automatically want to share that, or people will be gravitating toward you automatically. So we might not have the mountaintops with the crowds around us sitting at our feet, but your life will begin to speak such a great truth that others will just seek, what is it? See, and you live it. You begin to be it. And that's how we are as transformers and light bearers and people who are impacting the world. So that's the process. Now, I just completed self-knower level 2. And I kept thinking about this because for what it's worth, I bet you most of us think that we probably really believe that we know ourselves. Most of us think, I know myself. I know who I am. After all, I'm with myself 24/7. I'm with myself 24/7, and I have been with myself 24/7 for however many years you've been on the planet, right? So surely I know myself. But if the truth be told, we must admit that we are probably not as clear about ourselves as we think we are. Because if we're honest, we would have to admit that for the most part, we live a great deal of our lives from an unconscious state, right? From an unconscious state. We're on automatic pilot. Most of us, we drove here this morning, but I bet you were not conscious of every turn, every step. You just got in Bessie, and Bessie just took you here, and you just drove. Because we have that, right? Bessie just gets us home. I'm not conscious of the route that I'm taking. It's automatic. I've done it so much I don't have to think about it. I don't have to be present to it. And now sometimes I've been so not present that I've either passed my stop or, you know what I mean? I've been someplace else. I'm like, well, where am I? Oh, I've missed my turn, or I have not been present, right? Because I'm on automatic. And so that happens quite a bit for us. Or if we're honest, we'll notice that we're usually reacting as opposed to making a conscious choice. That much of our expression is a reaction. It's not a conscious choice. Somebody says something and I react, I respond. How are you? Oh, I'm fine, and you? I'm not even caring how the other person's feeling. They don't care how I'm feeling. It's just reacting. We're just saying that, right? It comes up automatically without conscious thought. So we have reactions, and they're old triggers, and maybe there's a reaction that you've been triggered and you don't even know why you've been triggered or what your triggers are. You just know, wow, something happened and somebody did something, and there it is. You've responded, you've reacted in a certain way. You have habitual thinking. There are certain things that we think habitually. We have habitual feelings. I've always felt this way. I've always done it this way. I've always thought this way. So I don't have to think anymore because this is going to be my natural response. This is the way I think. This is the way I am. How many of you have proudly proclaimed, this is just the way I am? As if we don't have a choice into how we want to be. Right? We think, well, I've always been this way. Well, it's your choice. Just because you have always been this way does not mean you must continue to always be that way. But we will use it as a proud justification. Well, this is the way I am. Take it or leave it, right? Like it or lump it. Come on, we know that. See, you're honest. But the rest of them are sitting there, oh, no. We do this, right? So we living our lives from an habitual state of mind and based on past experiences. And to be honest, if we're honest, but most of us is not our conscious fault. And I'll say conscious fault because we do play a part in it. Okay, when stuff keeps happening, we do have a role to play in it. And we are a co-participant in some of these things that come into our lives and affairs. But it's not, I say it's not our conscious fault because we have inadvertently wired our brains to take us down a certain path. We have wired our brains inadvertently to take us down some old neural pathways that have resulted as a result of our thinking certain thoughts and having certain feelings over and over and over and having them before. And here's the worst part. When you have had, every time you have a thought that you've had before, you're just digging a deeper neural pathway right in your brain to ensure that you're going to go down that path again. Because that's the way that the brain works. And so it does happen to us that now it is automatic. Now it appears as if I don't have any control over, my reactions or what's happening or what I'm saying or how I'm feeling, when in fact we do. But the brain has just taken us down the pathway that we've created. And so we respond and we react. And this is very important for me as I was thinking this morning, I was like, we all respond that way. So when I get upset with people and their responses, if I could just take a moment to say, you know what, it's just a conditioned response. It's not necessarily who the soul of them, it's just a part of how they have been constructed. If they worry, maybe they've conditioned themselves to be worriers. If they're fearful, they've conditioned themselves to have fear. If they're negative, they have conditioned themselves to complain and blame, and it's just the way in which their brains are now functioning automatically. And so maybe I don't have to take it so personally. It's just what they're doing, not necessarily doing what to me. It's what they're doing. So that helps a little bit. But the whole thing is, we will. The more we do it, it's a vicious cycle. Because the more we do it, the more we are ensuring that we will do it what? Do it again. Unless and until we make a conscious choice to create a new neural pathway or a new path. A new path not only for our thoughts and our feelings and our energy to travel on, but a new path, a new direction. So new heights. A new path for our consciousness to follow, for our consciousness to be able to expand in new ways of being and experiencing life that are beyond anything that we have experienced thus far. What happens is, sometimes we'll get bored with life because the same old thing keeps happening. We're doing the same old conditions. Nothing is new. Right? And we feel, gosh, I'm bored. It's the same thing. I get up, I'm in my routine. And we haven't expanded beyond the limits of our own boxed-in consciousness. So we have the same experiences. But the key is to be able, we talk about seek a higher consciousness. Are you really seeking? How are you expanding your consciousness? What are you doing so that you're taking yourself beyond the thoughts that you've already thought before? Many of us have not had a new thought in years. No, we've had the same, I'm serious. We haven't had a new thought. Because our consciousness is this is the box and it fits in that and everything happens within this box. But what would happen if we begin to expand beyond, take the consciousness beyond what is known into the unknown? See, expand to our heights and our visions so that we get to these transcendent states. When was the last time you functioned in bliss? Right? We had a little happiness, something happened, a little joy, but have you really been in bliss? and experience that? When was the last time you actually had that experience of a God-realized moment where there was no separation between you and God, or no separation between you and these flowers or these trees or this plant or an animal or a cat or a dog, that you were them and they were you? How many of us have had that expanded awareness and feeling? Very, very few. And we may have touched it from time to time, but we really haven't lived in an expanded consciousness of one, of all life. And so, how are we going to expand ourselves beyond? Because if not, we're going to do the same old thing, have the same old life. And so we've got to move ourselves beyond ourselves so that all of a sudden these other states, not just a beautiful state where things are going well, but actually a transcendental state, an enlightened state, a God-realized state. I get answered prayers, I speak and it happens, I manifest. I do miracles. I'm hungry, I can manifest what they call mabuti in food. I can do what Jesus did. See, we think, oh yeah, well, I don't know about all that. It's nice to say metaphysically, yes, greater things than these shall you do. But in the back of our heads, we're like, I can't do none of that stuff. When in fact, if we begin to operate on a totally different level, outside the box, outside what is normal for our thinking capacity, in an expanded consciousness. There are many realms. Jesus said, there in my Father's house there are many rooms, meaning many realms beyond this one where we live momentarily. And we don't have to die and go to heaven to experience them. You can experience them right here and now. You will also have experiences when you transition from the body. But it is not necessary for you to wait for that to have the experiences that are for you in the many rooms and many levels and many states and many awarenesses beyond this one where we function in, where we really can begin to master and harness the spiritual laws of the universe so that these transcendent states become normal expressions for us. The ordinary, the extraordinary becomes the ordinary. The miraculous becomes, it's mundane. Because it is what? Happening all the time. It's my normal state. Oh, I need this? Yes, the need is met in this moment. Oh, we have moments of that where we pray and God answers the prayer in the moment, but there are moments. What would it be like if we begin to live our lives when you think a thought and you have a need and you express it and there it is? That's an expanded way of living and being. And it is a possible way. We have to stop thinking that it's impossible, because there is no separation between us and the divine. I was thinking this thought when I came and I was driving, and we always say, in God, I live, move, and have my being. What about, instead of in God, I live, move, and have, what about if God lives and moves and has its being in and through me? I know I live in God, okay, but God is seeking to live and move and have its being in me, through my life, through my affairs. So I can actually say, you know what? I am that I am. Not I am that I am. I want you to hear, I am what? I am that I am. If I am is the name of God, I want to say, I am that I am. I'm that. If God is infinite peace, I am that. If God is abundance, I am that. That's what I am. Right? If God is manifestation and glory, I am that. That's what I am. And not because I'm mouthing it from a certain consciousness, because I am that. And I begin to live that. So the first thing we got to do, if you want to have those experiences, if you want to move beyond your limited sense of self, the first thing you have to do is actually begin to start to know yourself, to see yourself, to know what's taking place, to move out of this unconscious malaise that we are in, to see when you are in habitual thinking, to see that, oh, this was a triggered response, right? To see that, and to know what my responses are, to see what they are, to see that this is just a conditioned response, a conditioned thought, a conditioned belief, an opinion, or something that someone else gave me. It's a conditioned perception that I've always had, that I've had before. This is what, to see that in the moment you are experiencing that is the beginning of freedom. It's the beginning of you living on a different realm. Because those things, those conditions, those thoughts, those beliefs, those attitudes, those perceptions, they are always operating in the background. Your fears are in the background, right? Your old beliefs are in the background. And then they're in the background, but they're not only, listen, they're in the background, but they're wreaking havoc in your present experience because they're unconscious, but they're operating. We don't bring, so what the task is that they have said for us is to be a self-knower, is to bring this stuff from the background to the forefront so I can see myself. I need to see, you know what, this ain't nothing but fear showing up. Or you know what, this is a belief that I have had, this is an assumption I've made about how life is. So, and it's operating, and now that I see it, I can do what? I can make a choice whether I want to continue with that direction of energy and thought or make a new one to really begin to see it in the moment. And what they have said, in order for us to get out of our old habits and to see ourselves, is to be able to start to practice what is called the witnessing self. Or some schools call it the witnessing presence or the divine observer. And this is the good news, because there is that in us which sees everything. And it sees beyond judgment. The witness does not judge. It doesn't condemn. It doesn't, if you hear chatter the same, now see, look, I see that, but you know what, you doing this because you bad, but that's not witnessing. You may come to the conclusion and the understanding of why you're doing something, but the witness is not going to judge. The witness just sees and shows, sees and shows. And what we want to do is, because just like the background, in the background, you know, it's a little, the fears and the doubts and the thoughts, well, the witness is also in the background. And when we can start to take a moment and catch the spaciousness and say, let me see what is here. You shift into the witness presence, the witnessing presence, and you begin to watch. You begin to see yourself. You see, and it doesn't mean that you may still be having the activity. You know, you may still be having the upset or the anger or whatever's still going on, or the argument with somebody. But in the midst of the argument, you begin to see, I'm arguing, or I'm really holding on to this particular thought or something. There's space that begins to happen when you're able to allow the witness to be present. And in that short time of spaciousness that happens, and it's very subtle, but in that time of spaciousness, you can make a new choice. Because you see it now. You're not unconscious to it. You see it now, and you can in the moment. Now, sometimes you might not be able to make the choice in that moment, and you continue on with the argument, and you continue on. But when you see it enough, it begins to shift and change on its own. So seeing sometimes is enough, even if you can't stop the direction of your actions. But if you can see them constantly, the seeing of it is so powerful, it begins to change your consciousness. Because when it comes up, then it loosens. Unconsciousness is has a hold. It keeps us stuck and it's tight. Consciousness gives us space, and it loosens its grip so that the next time I might be able to just make a different choice. Because I've been down this path before. I can see where my arguments and my need to be right, or my need to put you down, or my need to feel insecure, or whatever it is that's going on, I can see where that leads me. It's in my I consciousness, my sense of separation, my me, right? Not the one. And when you can shift from that me, I to the one, solutions come. It's hard to get divine guidance when you're stuck in the I consciousness, you know what I mean? In your fear, in your doubt. It's hard to get the voice that wants to come through to give you when you got so much fear. Fear is an energy, right? Or anger, or upset, or doubt. It's hard then to stop and get this download you need. So the key is to recognize, you know what? I'm in a triggered mode. I'm in I consciousness. Okay, I see that. I see that. My seeing then can help me to take a little breath and get a little breather so that now, from the one consciousness, I might make a higher choice. I might make a decision that says, you know what? I can bless you, have the argument, But even if I respond, my response will now come from what? A different place. My response will carry a different vibration so that it may not trigger you. I'll give you an example. When I go to India, I have a good friend who used to be a member here. She's moved. Anyway, I won't say her name, but whenever we go, we're always roommates, right? And because we understand and, we wrap our heads up at night and we don't have to explain to somebody what I'm doing with my hair and all that stuff. So we get to do that, right? And so she's very particular, and I'm very particular. So when we got in, I know that she likes to keep in the room, there's a luggage rack. And I like to keep my suitcase down because sometimes I go in it and I want to get stuff, right? And the luggage rack is high, and I can't, because all the suitcases are up there, hers and mine, I can't open my suitcase up. So I came in, and she was in the room, got to the room first and checked in and everything. I came in later. But anyway, I was unpacking, and I unpacked my suitcase. For the most part, I had some stuff in it, but I did. And then I put it over in a corner, and it was in a corner on her side of the room, but it was off. She had plenty of room. The desk is here, and plenty of room over there. It was off in a corner. So I'm in, laying around, and I see, she says, I'm going to move your suitcase and put it on the suitcase rack. So the moment she did that and said that, I got triggered, right? Because I'm like, well, it's my suitcase, and, So then I said, because we've been down this road having these moments. Each time we room together, there's always one thing that gets us, we have a little moment. So I said, okay, this is the moment, I see. So I said, well, is it bothering you? Now, I'm triggered. She goes, why, yes, it was. She said, because the luggage rack is there. I said, She said, well, I hope it didn't trigger you. I said, well, a little. But to be able to even have this conversation, because we're present, right? So I said, well, yes, it did a little. She said, well, I'm glad it didn't trigger you a great deal. I said, well, it did trigger me because, she said, well, the luggage rack is to put the luggage on. And I said, yes, but I can't open up my suitcase on the luggage rack, and I may want to go into it. So I said to myself, all right, I see that I'm triggered. She sees that she's triggered. And the fact that we could both recognize that and bring it to the forefront, and then I had to make a choice for me, and I said, well, here's the thing. I can take everything that is in the suitcase and put it in the little shelves, or put it on my desk, or put it where I want to, so that I don't have to go into my suitcase to open it up for any reason. That way, that's a problem in a situation. I can have access to what I need. She can have the suitcase on the suitcase rack. She was like, well, it's a feng shui thing. And I'm like, whatever. But from a conscious point of view that we both were triggered, I could say, well, when you're triggered, it's not that you shouldn't be triggered, but how do you want to handle the situation? Because if I come from I consciousness, I'm going to get stuck on, it's my trigger and I want my suitcase over there. I have the right to have my suitcase anywhere I want in the room, just like you do. You want it there, and we could go on that road, right? But what will that do? Brings conflict, inharmony. We both end up feeling bad, upset for a moment. Maybe we won't be speaking for a couple. What's the solution? So when I move to the one consciousness is about connectivity. It's about harmony. It's about what brings the one together. And it's like, you know what? I don't have to all right, this will satisfy I don't have to open up my suitcase. I just take everything out, and yes, I'll have to pack it up again, but okay, so be it. And it let me feel, okay, I could take that higher road. I could make that higher choice. You know, I don't have to struggle. Now, there may be some things where I want to, but I just needed to let that be. And I watched my trigger. She watched her trigger. We talked about it and moved on. I could let her have her, you know, her thing. Huh? And it was okay, you know. Now, when I'm normally in my thing, I'd be like, I want my suitcase over there. You don't move my suitcase. That's my suitcase. We get stuck, right? So bringing conscious awareness to everything, to that inner state within yourself. Witness it. I could see myself getting ready to go down that road, and I made a different choice. I looked at all of my conditioning and all of that. So we have to understand that I can step away. You can step away. You can witness what you're doing. Witness whether this is your action. Is it coming from an old belief? Where was that I had to have the suitcase? And her whole thing, she had to have it over here. None of that matters. She didn't have to have it over there, and I didn't have to have it over there. It was really, right? None of it was significant. But I could let her have her thing. But none of it was, I wanted to say, that ain't significant either, but I didn't want to go there. So we check in with yourself. You don't believe everything that runs through your head. You don't have to believe it. You don't have to think it. Don't believe everything you think. Some of it is assumptions. Some of it are conditioned beliefs. Some of it are opinions. Some of it is somebody else's opinion that you just buying into. Check out what's going on in me. Where is it coming from? What am I feeling? What am I thinking? We were supposed to be a self-knower. We had to constantly, all right, what are you feeling in this moment? What was I feeling then? So if I break that down, I got triggered because I didn't want her to move it. But then I had to say, what was that really all about? See, keep going underneath. And I said, okay, I didn't want her to move my suitcase, but what was that? Well, because I like to have things in a particular order. Well, what was that all about? Well, if it was out of order, it didn't fit. Well, what, you know, and I keep bringing it down to the fact that really it was my I consciousness, this way I wanted it. It didn't have to be that way. Or when you look at your conditioned responses, I'm looking at my response and I recognize, you know what? My natural trigger is when something happens that is outside, it goes awry, my natural trigger or response is to get upset or angry or annoyed that things didn't go, it went awry. And so they have us looking at all of our assumptions. And why is that? Well, because I'm operating unconsciously on an assumption that divine order should be manifesting at all times. Or the assumption that I should always strive for excellence and doing things right, you know, in my head. So when it's not that, I begin to get triggered and I suffer and I have angst because it's not right. When the definition of not right is really something I'm making up, right? Because most of the time we have our self-induced limitations, our self-prescribed assumptions and things, this is the way it's supposed to be. Like, you know, and so I recognize, oh, okay, you have an assumption that life should always unfold perfectly. Well, if that's your assumption, you're going to be suffering a lot because guess what? Life doesn't always unfold that way, right? So I'm triggered, I'm upset, I'm angry. And it's like, wow, I don't want to be that. So now, if something's coming up, where is this coming from? What's my assumption? What's a conditioned belief? What is it that I'm doing to hold myself in this particular box that is causing me angst? Yeah, I could blame it on her. I could blame it on them. I could blame it on that. I could justify it. I could make it a real thing. But what's happening really inside? What is it really saying about me? When someone decides that they want to make a new choice in the relationship and they want to go in another direction, do you automatically feel abandoned? Do you feel triggered? Do you feel hurt and pained and suffered? Why? What is it that you're saying when someone makes a choice to move in another direction? Is it that, wow, I'm not good enough, they don't love me, I'm not worthy, I'm too old, I'll never find another one like this, or I'll be alone the rest of my life, or I won't have anyone to grow old with, and blah, 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 blah. All of those thoughts and those perceptions and those assumptions and those statements are what's triggering suffering and pain in you. not the fact that the individual chose to move in another direction. It is what you are telling yourself that it means. And so what's your self? The self-knower is, well, where am I coming from with these thoughts? Is that true? Am I too old for love? Will someone never love me? Or are they the only one that I must have? Those are assumptions and statements that may or may not be true, and most likely they are not. And so learning to know oneself means to look at everything that's happening in you, in your feeling nature and in your thinking nature. And to see if this is not where, if it's not bringing you into a beautiful state, into a place of harmony and peace, then it's bringing you into suffering and angst and separation and inharmony and conflict and struggle. Let it go. That is a thought that's coming from the I consciousness, not the one. All thoughts that come from one consciousness will have a connection, a thought that's healing, holding, right? Peaceful, sharing. It's a divine spiritual energy and thought. That one consciousness and one presence to really get this. So we begin to look at ourselves, look at your fears, look at your angst, and figure out what's going on within your own being. What is the state of your consciousness? And then make a different choice for yourself. Listen to what is fueling your internal world. It's very, very significant. Because if you don't, you'll be unconscious and you will be walking and living life not being present to your life and not being present to the fullness of the one presence and power. When you tap in, you can't tap into the one presence and power when you're down here thinking of all these other little things. And if you really want to get into what they call this divine flow, then you've got to get into one consciousness. Things will come and things will go. And you won't be reacting, you'll be flowing. There's a difference between reacting and flowing. The thoughts will arise that lead to peace and harmony. The answers you need, the directions you'll be able to hear, go there, do this, look for that, right? One student talks about she shared on her way home how she had lost her, couldn't find her passport, and how it moved her into a state of peace. And then the thoughts that she kept telling herself was, oh my God, I can't get out of the country, I'll have to be, right, this is what we do. I can't get out of the country, I'll have to be here for God knows how long, or I gotta go to the consulate, or my goodness, how am I gonna get back in and get home, and all these fear things, all this stuff. And she recognized, wait a minute, I'm in this separation I. There's a flow. There's the one, I am one with the one. And when she was able to get centered enough to tap into that, then she could hear Spirit say, call the restaurant that you were at, call the hotel that you were at. She called the restaurant, had them look, because she remembers pulling out her wallet and had her passport in it or whatever. They said they couldn't see anything, they didn't find anything, so she had to keep going back to the peace, to the panic. And then all of a sudden, she says after a while, she just kept trying to stay in the state, and the person who was with her, and then the restaurant called and said for some strange reason, her passport was on the 8th floor in a bathroom that somebody found, and it was all wet. She said, never went to the 8th floor, don't know how it got there, but the fact that she could tap, you see what I'm talking about? She could tap into the flow. See, the universe will produce miracles. She don't have to know how that passport got in that 8th floor bathroom. All she need to do is say, thank you, God, you brought my passport to me, right? That's living in a completely different vibration. So that which you need will come to you when you are in the vibration and consciousness of the one. So be aware, be a self-knower, know what's going on. Ask yourself, what am I thinking at this moment? And do it often as a practice. I'm like, oh, wait a minute, what am I thinking? Because I just let thoughts, no, what am I thinking? Let me be conscious in this moment. Let me be present to this moment. What am I feeling? Oh, it's unconscious angst. Oh, keep digging. Because it says, physician, know thyself. Metaphysician, know thyself. Heal thyself and know thyself. and you'll be able to get over yourself. Blessings. Blessings, blessings, blessings. Blessings. Blessings.